6 Days in Fallujah. 6 Days in Fallujah was just announced this morning to be revived. The trailer is mostly CGI at this point since the development on this game stopped in 2009, facing backlash for making entertainment out of a still ongoing conflict that seems reasonable for the time. I don't know what the development looks like at the moment, but it comes as a surprise. And honestly, that's not as interesting as the story surrounding the game. The trailer has some interesting lines. A voice narrator pleads with her audience. We can tell you our stories. We could show you our scars. But some moments must be experienced. The video or trailer continues on. A veteran says, "We've done a very good job of appreciating service members, but a very poor job of telling the actual story of what happened," which to me seems to be the impetus for the game, the reason for it existing. Now, some journalists are already on Twitter decrying 6 Days in Fallujah. The left has long used World War II imagery to go after their opponents. Most likely the only way to see soldiers and American imperial forces in a good light is to compare it to the bad actors in World War II. Now, there's this game out there showing a non-fiction event in which U.S. forces are in combat against people of a different color. Will there be the same heroification as we've seen in a conflict against our World War II era opponent? I'm a veteran myself, and while I didn't serve in this particular combat zone or any others, I nonetheless have sought out to understand the conflict in a better light myself. One of the biggest influence I've used to gain more understanding of the conflict is the book House to House by Staff Sergeant David Bellavia. It's an intense look into a conflict in which we've lost over 4,000 service members. And if you're at all curious, please give the book a read. It's well worth your time for even civilians to get a better appreciation and understanding of Fallujah and the greater Iraq and Afghanistan conflict. So I ask you, if there's a chance to start understanding this generation of service members and the conflict they were in, is it the right time for fiction to start? Is there ever a right time for fiction based on real conflicts? I say yes with this video game in particular and other pieces of media. Call of Duty's been on Iraq, or at least fictionalized versions of it, for years now. But let me know in the comments what you think. Looking at this project now, I feel it's an important look into a still ongoing conflict. Whether it's time to be entertained by it is a harder question to answer. The greatest war movie of all time, Saving Private Ryan, had decades between the conflict and the art. But in today's age where many veterans, including myself, use video games as a coping mechanism, is the video game right in any sense? Is it wrong? Well, some journalists seem to think so. Imran Khan tweets, "I see zero sense in defending that 6 Days in Fallujah game until or unless there's absolute confirmation it's getting zero funding from the U.S. Army." I take particular issue with this tweet. I've said for years now that one of the defining moments for me deciding to join the military was playing Call of Duty. The sense of camaraderie the game showed me led to me chasing that feeling in reality. It's a feeling I found and I've kept with me since returning to the civilian world. I wouldn't trade anything for it, and I'm glad I made the choices I did. It was always fun to joke around with my battle buddies about it. We all had different reasons for joining, but I don't feel any shame at all about that. It was exactly what I was looking for, and I found it. I went and got it in real life. Daniel Ahmad tweets, "I couldn't possibly guess why 6 Days in Fallujah is being revived at a time when U.S. Army recruitment is an all-time low. The reboot is from the same people that worked with the FBI and CIA on training systems, and it's basing its game on excusing U.S. war crimes." This is absolutely preposterous. There's thousands of U.S. service members that were in Fallujah that fought honorably. They fought honorably, and not only that, they faced some of the nastiest fighting during Fallujah. IEDs and even buildings rigged up as IEDs were some of the dangers they faced during those 6 days in Fallujah. So for this idiot to go out there and tweet that there's a game veterans are involved in that are now attempting to excuse war crimes, there weren't any war crimes there. Not at large. This is Twitter journalism at its finest. It's hateful of service members. And honestly, it's just downright disgusting. Prime candidate number 8 tweets, "I think there's a lot of room for military shooters that examine the horrors of war and the imperialist motivations of the U.S. But I don't think we need this to examine those things. Spec Ops: The Line did an excellent job at telling its story. Would love more games like it." Spec Ops: The Line is an interesting case. Maybe I'll talk about that at some other point. But any American using the word imperialist in regards to our armed forces is an idiot. As for his ideas of needing, I think that's ridiculous on its face too. Whether you agree with the geopolitical aims of the current military or not, the boots on the ground soldiers and service members deserve their outlets and to have their stories told. There's much more than a need for these stories. The generation who have fought this current war are owed their moment in a video game or movie or whatever piece of art allows them to be heard in their suffering. Julie Muncie writes, I interviewed the former lead of 6 Days in Fallujah years ago for a feature that never panned out. I was and am now fascinated by the idea of the project, but it is an impossible thing to needle and thread, and gaming has gotten pretty bad at talking about war via games. This is a fine idea at first glance. Games are primarily entertainment. I don't think anyone wants to get charged a microtransaction fee for a dance in this game. The horror of paying for a drag your comrade to safety emote followed by a dance like that comes to mind. That would, in my opinion, invalidate everything this project is setting out to do. She continues on and warns, I think the project could easily become propagandistic, but I don't think that's the intention. I don't think so either. Conscious biases towards America are strong, but it's hard to read the full history of this conflict and see it as anything but a story of American failure and hubris. The story of Fallujah, the Iraq and Afghanistan conflict, is much more than that pessimistic outlook. Journalists are always the first to celebrate military failure in America. They crave it and do their absolute best to make that a reality, as we saw in Vietnam. The story of Fallujah, as told in this game, is hopefully one of the soldiers and Marines and other service members who went door to door, kicking them down, clearing these buildings, in a country thousands of miles away from their home, in a world they didn't understand, in a conflict that may not have made sense to them and still doesn't. They sacrificed their lives and their bodies, their comrades, their peace of mind and their sanity, doing something no one else would. They get to tell their stories now. They get to tell it as art, and that's frightening to modern day journalists. However this game turns out, it's an important milestone in the years to follow the hopeful ending of this conflict. As a former soldier myself, I will at all times take the narrative from journalists and from propagandists. It's our story. It's not yours. If we want to make a video game and play it, stay out of our way. There's no demand for you to engage with it in the first place. Our truths will stand in history and soon stand as art as well. Who is it for anyone else to say how we as a generation involved in the Middle East conflict share our trauma? If we want to go back in time and nutsack our battle buddies in a digital Valhalla, that's all right. It's unimpeachable. We're going to celebrate it and hopefully learn something from it. It's our place to do so. I encourage everyone to follow this story, give it some consideration. This is a day one buy for me. I can't wait to review it and consider it not only as a piece of entertainment, but hopefully more importantly as a piece of art, which video games definitely are these days. Cathartic. It's maybe reliving trauma. Maybe some veterans out there have a different opinion on, don't want to be involved with it. That's their right too. But for me, I can't wait to go through it, and I hope that it not only stands as hopefully a piece of therapy to some of our guys, but most importantly is art. It's been Jalapeno Milk. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. See you on the next video.